It was an emergency transmission unlike any the Galactic Council had ever received before. The usual routine of interstellar diplomacy, trade agreements, and minor disputes was interrupted by a sharp, urgent signal from an alien delegate. Talkar. He was the representative of a race known for its intellect and foresight, a species that had been observing the universe for millennia. But today, Salkar wasn't here to discuss politics or peace. He had come with a warning that sent a shiver through the room of council members. "I bring news about a species on a distant planet, Earth," Salkar began, his voice steady but heavy with concern. "A race that, if provoked, can bring destruction unlike anything you have ever encountered. They are called humans, and I warn you, when humans go berserk, even gods can't save you." The council room fell silent, each member exchanging skeptical glances. The idea of a species so young, so unrefined compared to the ancient civilizations present in the room, being a threat, seemed absurd. The humans, a species still locked in their own wars, with only a few centuries of space exploration, were far from anything to worry about. At least, that was the prevailing belief. But Talkar's words hung in the air, pressing down on the council like a heavy weight. One of the council members, a large, armored being from the Vortis race, was the first to speak up. "A new species, you say? How could they possibly pose a threat to us? We've faced races far older and more powerful." Zalkar didn't flinch. "Their power is not in their technology, nor their civilization. It is something else entirely." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. "It is in their rage." The Vortis delegate laughed dismissively. "Rage? You would warn us about an emotional response." But Salkar's face remained calm, his alien eyes unwavering. "It's more than just emotion. It's something primal, something buried deep inside them. I have witnessed it firsthand." He spoke of battles fought long ago, on worlds far from the Council's reach. Humans, when they are pushed to the brink of extinction or driven into a corner, can unlock a potential within themselves that is beyond anything we understand. Their rage becomes a weapon, an unstoppable force that even the strongest of us cannot contend with. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They fight to the death. And in that fight, they are terrifying. The council members exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't a species with powerful weapons or superior technology. This was something else entirely. Zalkar continued, recounting one of the most well-known events in galactic history, the Battle of Valdoria. The Valdorians, an ancient and highly advanced race, had invaded Earth centuries ago. They underestimated the humans, believing that they could wipe out the small, primitive race with ease. The Valdorian fleet descended upon Earth, their weapons capable of disintegrating entire cities. But instead of crumbling under the weight of the attack, the humans fought back with a fury that shocked the invaders. Zalkar described the chaos that followed. In a matter of hours, the humans destroyed over half of the Valdorian fleet. They fought with such ferocity that the Valdorians had no choice but to retreat. They were not warriors in the traditional sense, but their sheer determination and anger turned them into a force that could not be stopped. The council members, some of whom had fought in wars across the stars, couldn't believe what they were hearing. A race of beings with no advanced weapons or overwhelming strength had caused such devastation. "Is it possible that this is just a fluke?" one delegate asked. "That it was a one-time event, perhaps caused by desperation?" Zalkar shook his head. "No, this has happened more than once. Time and time again, humanity has been pushed to the brink and unleashed a fury that no one can predict. They are not just survivors, they are conquerors when in rage. Their rage turns them into warriors capable of facing even the gods themselves." The council's laughter died down. What Axalkar was describing wasn't some isolated incident. He was speaking of a pattern, a terrifyingly consistent trait in humanity. Their anger wasn't just a momentary flare of emotion. It was a power, a force of nature that made them something to fear. Zulkar paused, his voice becoming more somber. We may think of them as primitive, as inexperienced, but we are wrong. They are capable of great destruction when pushed too far. And once they unleash that rage, it becomes unstoppable. Even the greatest of fleets, the most powerful of weapons, have fallen before their wrath. The council members sat in stunned silence. This wasn't a simple matter of diplomacy or galactic politics. This was a warning, one that made them reconsider everything they thought they knew about the universe. The tale of David Klein spread across the galaxy, reaching the ears of the council. It wasn't just a story of one man's revenge. It was a glimpse into the terrifying power that humanity was capable of. The rage that had driven David Klein had been more than just a reaction to loss. It was a transformation. A berserker had been born. Since then, humanity had witnessed more and more of these berserkers. Ordinary soldiers, scientists, farmers, and civilians, all of them pushed to the edge, all of them tapping into that same primal rage. The most famous of them all was General Tanya Ward, the leader who had once saved Earth from an alien invasion decades ago. She was known as the Lioness for her relentless fighting spirit, and in recent years she had become a symbol of humanity's power. Zulkar's voice grew somber as he spoke of General Ward's last mission. When the alien fleet arrived above Earth's orbit, intending to destroy humanity once and for all, General Ward did not hesitate. She led a charge, not with weapons or technology, but with pure, undiluted rage. She tore through the enemy forces, each strike driven by a force that was not human, but something else, something more. Her rage fueled the humanity's victory, and the invaders were forced to retreat, leaving Earth untouched. The council members shifted in their seats, their disbelief now replaced with a growing concern. They had assumed that humans were weak, that they could be easily controlled or eliminated, but they were learning that this was far from the truth. Humanity's rage, it seemed, was not just a momentary outburst. It was a force of nature, one that could reshape the galaxy itself. Zulkar leaned forward, his eyes sharp. These berserkers, once rare, are becoming more common. And their power is not just physical. It is psychological. Their will to survive, their desire to protect their people, fuels them in ways that we, with our advanced minds and technology, cannot comprehend. When they go berserk, they tap into a strength that allows them to face the impossible. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. We have seen them face fleets of ships, armies of invaders, and even gods, and emerge victorious. There is no predicting when or how it will happen. All we know is this: when humanity's rage is unleashed, it is unstoppable. Zulkar went on to explain that the growing number of berserkers was not just the result of war or conflict. It was an evolution. Humans had learned to harness their anger, to use it as a tool rather than a weakness, and as their population spread across the galaxy, so too did their ability to transform. Humanity was no longer just a race of survivors. They were becoming a race of warriors, driven by an unstoppable force. This is why I warn you, Zulkar concluded. We have seen what happens when humanity is pushed to the edge. We have seen the fury that lies dormant within them, waiting to be awakened. If we underestimate them, if we provoke them, we may find ourselves facing something far greater than we bargained for. The council members were silent. The fear that had started as a whisper was now growing louder. They had once believed that they were the masters of the galaxy, that no one could challenge their power. But now, for the first time, they realized that they were not invincible. There was a new force rising in the galaxy, a force driven by human rage, a force that even the most advanced civilizations might not be able to stop. The era of humanity's wrath had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The council chambers were eerily quiet after Zulkar's warning. The delegates sat in their seats, exchanging uneasy glances. A chill had settled over the room, one that no amount of technological advancement could warm. For the first time in centuries, The great powers of the galaxy felt something they had never felt before: fear. The idea of humanity, a young species with so little in the way of advanced technology, being able to defeat their most powerful fleets and warriors seemed impossible, and yet the evidence was undeniable. The berserkers, humans whose rage turned them into unstoppable forces, were real. The tales Salkar had shared weren't just stories, they were warnings. And now, the galaxy had to face a terrifying question. What would happen if humanity, in all its fury, turned against them? A delegate from the Korok, a race known for their fierce battle prowess, broke the silence. "What are we supposed to do about this?" he demanded, his voice gruff and filled with concern. "How do we stop something we can't predict? A force that doesn't respond to reason or diplomacy?" Zalkar's expression remained calm, but the weight of his words was unmistakable. "You cannot stop it, not without provoking it. The only way to avoid disaster is to never force humanity to unleash its rage." One final question echoed through the room. "What do you suggest we do about them?" Zalkar's answer was both simple and chilling. "Do not provoke them. Do not test their limits. If you do, be prepared for the consequences. Because when humans go berserk, even gods can't save you." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the council in a state of unease. Some of them scoffed at the idea, thinking it a mere exaggeration. Others, though, understood the weight of the warning. Humanity, for all its flaws, was not to be underestimated. And the council now had a new rule: never anger the humans. The transmission had ended, but Salkar's warning lingered in the minds of the Galactic Council. Many of them, still skeptical, doubted the seriousness of the human threat. To them, humanity was just another young species, one among many in the vast galaxy. But Salkar knew better. He had seen their fury firsthand, and now he needed to explain why the humans were unlike any other species they had encountered. A few days later, the council requested a second meeting with Salkar, urging him to provide more evidence. "If you claim that humans are capable of such destructive rage, you must show us proof," one delegate insisted. "Give us a history, a record of their past, so we can understand the full scope of your warning." Zalkar, reluctant but resolute, began to tell his story. The council listened carefully, each member keen to understand why a species so young, with so little technological advancement, could pose such a threat. And so, Salkar began to recount the events that had shaped humanity's terrifying reputation. "It all began long before we discovered your planet, even before Earth was united under one banner," he said, his voice calm but full of tension. "Humanity's history is one of war, survival, and ultimately, revenge. They are a race born from conflict, and when they are pushed to the edge, they fight back with a force that is nearly impossible to describe." He spoke first of the ancient wars on Earth, before humanity had even reached the stars. Humans have fought for dominance, for land, for resources, and for survival. Wars between nations ravaged their planet for centuries. But one thing remained constant in every conflict: the intensity of human rage. When cornered, they don't seek to escape. Instead, they fight with everything they have, often rising to impossible heights of violence. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen many races torn apart by internal wars, but Salkar spoke as if these battles had left something deeper in humanity than just scars. Zalkar continued, painting a vivid picture of Earth's history. In one of their world wars, during a time when humanity's survival was in jeopardy, a single human soldier named Marcus Stroud became a symbol of their rage. His unit was ambushed by an overwhelming enemy force. The odds were impossible. But instead of retreating, Marcus led a charge that cut down hundreds of enemies in a matter of hours. When the battle was over, the surviving enemies described him as something more than human, an unstoppable force, a man who had become a beast in the heat of battle. The council listened, their disbelief starting to fade. They were beginning to understand that this rage wasn't just an emotional response. It was a power, a force that transcended physical strength. Zalkar then moved on to another tale, one from the early days of humanity's space exploration. When the humans first reached out into the stars, they encountered other races, some far older and more advanced than they were. One such race, the Valorians, sought to conquer Earth, believing that humans were an easy target. They underestimated the ferocity of humanity. The Valorians landed on Earth with their highly advanced weapons, but the humans fought back with a strength and determination that shocked them. He described the battle between the humans and the Valorians, a fight that seemed destined for failure from the start. The Valorians, with their superior technology, quickly wiped out most of humanity's defenses, but a small group of human soldiers, led by a general named Tanya Ward, managed to rally the survivors. General Ward was a force unlike any the Valorians had ever faced, Zalkar said. She wasn't just a commander. She became a symbol of human rage. With her, the humans launched a final, desperate attack. They tore through the Valorian ranks, using tactics that were unpredictable and brutal. The Valorians were forced to retreat, their once dominant fleet scattered and broken. The council was silent. They had heard of wars, even galactic battles. But this story was different. This wasn't just a fight. It was a rebirth of humanity's greatest weapon, their fury. Zalkar then told them of a more recent event, one that had brought even more terror to the galaxy. A few decades ago, a large alien invasion force descended upon Earth, one that was prepared to wipe out all of humanity. The invaders were numerous and well-equipped, with weapons that could destroy entire cities. But once again, humanity did not give up. Instead, they went into a state of frenzy, of berserk rage, and it became clear to the invaders that this was not a species that could be defeated easily. He spoke of how the humans fought back, not with precision or strategy, but with sheer power and relentless anger. The invaders tried to bomb human cities into the ground, but every time they did, the humans retaliated in ways that defied all reason. They tore apart enemy ships with their bare hands. They fought off thousands of invaders without hesitation, their rage propelling them forward. The council members, now fully engaged in the story, could no longer deny the truth of Zalkar's words. They were beginning to understand that humanity's rage was not just an isolated event. It was a pattern, a part of their very nature. And this, Zalkar said gravely, is why I warn you. When humans are pushed beyond their limits, they become something else. They become forces of nature, unstoppable and terrifying. He finished his story with a final piece of advice. Do not mistake their youth for weakness. Do not think their lack of advanced weaponry or technology makes them any less dangerous. Because when humans go berserk, even the most powerful civilizations can be brought to their knees. The council sat in stunned silence, the weight of Zalkar's words settling over them like a dark cloud. They had heard tales of great warriors and mighty civilizations, but nothing had prepared them for the sheer ferocity of humanity. And now, they knew that the warnings were not just stories. They were the truth. The question remained, would they heed the warning, or would they make the same mistake that countless others had made before them? Only time would tell. The council room buzzed with uneasy chatter after Zalkar's story. The delegates who had once dismissed humanity as a primitive, unimportant race now sat with furrowed brows, rethinking their initial impressions. They had listened to Zalkar's accounts, but a lingering question remained. How could humanity, with so little to offer in terms of technology or raw power, create such devastating fury? Zalkar had one more thing to share, a crucial piece of the puzzle. He spoke not of history now, but of the present. The humans were changing, evolving, and the force that made them so dangerous was no longer something that could be ignored or controlled. He began to describe the rise of what humanity had come to call the berserkers, individuals who, in moments of extreme anger, could unlock incredible power within themselves, surpassing the limits of normal human strength and resilience. The term berserker had come from Earth's ancient history, where the fiercest warriors of old were said to have fought without fear or hesitation. But the term had gained a new, terrifying meaning in recent years. It was no longer just a myth or an old story. Today, the berserkers were real, and they were becoming more frequent. Zalkar began with a tale that had sent ripples of fear through the galaxy. It began on a world that was far from Earth, a world where humanity had just begun to settle. The colony was peaceful, with humans building their homes and farms, far from the conflicts of the larger, more dangerous parts of the galaxy. But peace is a fragile thing, and it wasn't long before a band of marauders from a hostile alien race arrived. They came in waves, tearing through the colony, slaughtering humans, and burning everything in their path. At first, the humans tried to fight back with conventional weapons, guns, missiles, and improvised defenses, but it was clear that they were outmatched. The marauders had superior technology and strength, and the human settlers were no match for their relentless assault. But then, something changed. One human, a young soldier named David Klein, had been on the front lines, trying to protect the civilians. He was like any other soldier, trained, disciplined, and focused. But when the marauders took his family, something snapped inside him. It wasn't just anger, it was something deeper. David's body became an instrument of pure destruction. He tore through the marauders with a force that none of them could have anticipated. His strength was beyond human limits. His reflexes were faster than any soldier could hope to be. And when the battle was over, David was standing alone, surrounded by the bodies of the fallen invaders. His face was covered in blood, his body bruised and battered, but he was alive, and he had won. One of the younger council members, a sleek, silver-skinned being from the Scifi race, spoke up. "Is there no way to control this? Surely there must be some way to limit the human capacity for violence." Zalkar shook his head slowly. "It's not just violence, it's a survival instinct, deep within them. They are capable of tremendous compassion, but they are also capable of destruction, unlike anything we can imagine when pushed to the edge. It is a balance, one they have lived with since the dawn of their species." The debate grew heated. Some of the older council members, who had spent lifetimes building power and influence through diplomacy and force, couldn't fathom a race that operated outside of logic and reason. They spoke of military tactics, of strategies to defeat the humans before they could become a threat. "We could strike preemptively," one suggested. "We have the resources, the firepower. Why not eliminate the problem before it grows?" Zalkar's eyes narrowed. "That is exactly what you should not do. If you provoke humanity, they will fight. And once they begin, there will be no stopping them. I am not here to suggest they be wiped out or enslaved. I am here to warn you. Respect them. Do not view them as a threat until they prove themselves as one. A single misstep, and you could awaken something you will regret." The tension in the room thickened. Some of the delegates seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, while others still believed that humanity could be controlled or even crushed. "But, Zalkar," said the Scifi delegate, "why are they becoming like this? Surely there must be a way to prevent the rise of the berserkers. They are too dangerous." Zalkar let out a long sigh. "It is not something they choose. It is something that has always been within them, lying dormant until they are pushed to their breaking point. They are a species shaped by conflict, wars fought for survival, colonies torn apart, friends and families lost. That rage is their response to all of it." The council was silent again, this time reflecting on what Zalkar had said. Humans were a species born from struggle, from the constant fight for survival in a universe that didn't care whether they lived or died. Their rage wasn't born out of cruelty. It was born from a deep-seated need to protect and to endure, and it had grown into something far more powerful than anyone had expected. Then, a thought began to form in the mind of the Korok delegate, a race that valued strength above all else. "What if we embraced them?" he asked cautiously, his voice low. "What if we found a way to harness this rage? Could we use their strength to our advantage?" Zalkar's expression darkened. That would be a mistake. Humanity's rage is not a tool. It is a force that is beyond anyone's control. To try to manipulate it is to risk everything. The Korok delegate, however, seem to think otherwise. But their power is undeniable. Perhaps, if we align with them, offer them our resources and aid, we could form an alliance, one built on mutual strength. Another delegate, this time from the Nithran, a peaceful race with great knowledge of psychic energy, spoke up. It is true that humanity's rage is powerful, but power alone is not enough. They may be strong, but they are not invincible. And if we provoke them, they will strike back with a fury that could destroy everything we've built. We must be cautious. The debate went on for hours, each delegate presenting different ideas, but none of them came close to agreeing on a solution. Some still believed that humanity was a threat that needed to be neutralized, while others, like Exalcar, warned against such an approach. "You cannot destroy a force like this without consequences," he repeated. "You cannot control what you do not understand." As the meeting drew to a close, the council was no closer to a resolution. The fear of humanity's potential had grown, but so had the question of how to respond. The galaxy had never faced a challenge like this before. It was not a military threat they could counter with superior weapons, nor was it an ideological threat that could be solved with diplomacy. Humanity's wrath was something deeper, something that defied all reason and calculation. And in the quiet that followed Salkar's departure, the council knew one thing for certain. They could no longer view humanity as just another species among the stars. The galaxy's future would be shaped by how they treated Earth and its people. They had no choice but to tread carefully. For the first time in history, they were faced with a force they could neither predict nor control. The age of humanity's fury had begun, and the council, for all their knowledge and power, had no idea how to stop it, or whether they even should. Weeks passed since the council meeting, but the tension in the galaxy remained. The various races had been on edge, their leaders unsure of how to deal with the rising force that was humanity. Despite their fears, they continued to operate as though everything was normal, avoiding any direct confrontation with humans, yet unsure of when, if ever, humanity's rage might be unleashed. The question lingered: would they provoke it, or would they stand back and hope for the best? Then, without warning, it happened. A group of space-faring traders, mostly human, arrived on a neutral planet in the sector, known for its peaceful atmosphere and bustling markets. The planet was often a safe haven for travelers, a place where different races could come together to exchange goods and ideas. However, on this day, something was about to break the fragile peace. The traders were unloading their supplies when a gang of space pirates attacked. The pirates, a ruthless and violent group of outlaws, raided the market, taking anything of value. They were known for their cruelty, often leaving destruction in their wake. As the pirates began to terrorize the traders and locals alike, they underestimated one thing. They had chosen the wrong group to mess with. A young woman named Clara James was among the traders. A former soldier, she had been trying to leave her violent past behind and start a new life. But when the pirates attacked, something inside her snapped. Clara had seen too much in her life to let this kind of lawlessness slide, especially after all she had worked for. Her training kicked in, and without thinking, she ran toward the attackers, grabbing a nearby weapon. The pirates, used to overwhelming their targets with sheer numbers and firepower, didn't know what to expect from this small group of humans. They had no idea that Clara and the others were trained warriors. They opened fire, but the humans moved with the precision of an army, swift, sharp, and relentless. Clara's rage fueled her every move, and soon she was tearing through the pirate ranks, her blows as powerful as a freight train. The once confident pirates were forced into retreat, scrambling to escape the fury of the humans. It wasn't just Clara. Her actions sparked something in the other traders. Men and women, young and old, joined in, their anger turning the tide. They moved like a single unit, their collective rage a force of nature. The pirates, who had once thought they would raid the planet without resistance, now found themselves fighting for their lives. The humans were too fast, too strong, and too determined. What started as a simple raid had turned into a nightmare for the pirates. The news of the battle quickly spread across the galaxy, reaching the ears of the Galactic Council. Some of the members saw the outcome as proof of humanity's power and determination, but others saw it as an inevitable escalation of the human fury that Salkar had warned about. This incident could not be dismissed. It was the first clear demonstration of the force that humanity was capable of when pushed too far. Salkar, still deeply involved in the Council's affairs, watched from afar. He knew this would happen eventually. Humans could only tolerate so much before their rage took over, and when that happened, there was no going back. He had warned the Council, but now they had seen the consequences firsthand. As the pirate ship limped away, Clara stood on the battlefield, breathing heavily. The once peaceful market was now a wreck, but it was a wreck on their terms. The pirates had been defeated, and the traders had emerged victorious. But Clara felt a deep sense of unease. She knew the rage she had just unleashed was not a simple outburst. It was something much darker, something that could change the course of history. When the news reached Earth, the reaction was mixed. Some celebrated the victory, seeing it as proof that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Others, however, worried about the consequences of their growing reputation. The government had to act quickly to address the situation. The last thing they wanted was for the galaxy to view humanity as a threat to be destroyed. Meanwhile, the Council called another meeting. This time, it was clear that things were no longer theoretical. Humanity had proven that it could, and would fight back with terrifying force when pushed. The delegates were now debating how to approach this new reality. Some, like the Orcs, believed that it was time to ally with humanity, to forge an alliance based on mutual strength. After all, they had seen the power the humans could wield. But others, especially those from more peaceful races, were terrified. They argued that the human strength could not be trusted, and that it would only lead to more destruction. Alkar, as always, remained calm. "You must understand," he said, "this is just the beginning. Humanity's rage is a fire that cannot be controlled. They have shown you their power, but that power is not easily contained. If you want to avoid facing it again, you must tread carefully. Offer them respect, not fear." One of the council members, a high-ranking diplomat from the Vantari race, raised an important point. But what if humanity's rage spreads? What if they begin to attack other species, thinking they are being threatened? We cannot afford to sit idly by and wait for them to strike again. Salkar nodded gravely. That is the risk you face. Humanity's fury, once unleashed, can't be turned back. And once the galaxy has seen what they are capable of, they may be driven to act in ways we cannot predict. The discussion grew more heated as more voices joined in. Some argued for diplomacy, others for a show of force to keep humanity in check. But one thing was clear: humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer uncertain. They had proved their might, and now the Council was forced to confront the fact that humanity could no longer be ignored. Back on the neutral planet, Clara and her fellow traders had no idea the storm they had unleashed. The battle had been just one skirmish, one small step in the unfolding story of humanity's rise. But as the galaxy watched, one question remained on everyone's mind: what would happen next? The first encounter had shown the galaxy what humanity could do, but the real test was yet to come. Would the galaxy embrace humanity, or would it fear the wrath that lay within? Only time would tell. The galaxy held its breath. The events on the neutral planet had shaken the Council to its core. News of humanity's power had spread like wildfire. And while some of the galaxy's races began to consider alliances, others saw the human rage as a ticking time bomb. A new sense of urgency hung over every conversation, every decision. Humanity had shown what they were capable of, and the question now was whether the galaxy could control or contain this volatile force. Back on Earth, Leaders from all around the world were growing increasingly aware of the intergalactic scrutiny they faced. After the traitors' victory, the human government had issued a public statement about the importance of peace and diplomacy. But beneath the surface, there was growing fear that their own people were starting to believe that they could take on anyone, that they were invincible. The concept of peace was slowly being overshadowed by the temptation of power. The United Earth Council held an emergency meeting in an attempt to figure out how to deal with the new galactic reality. Humanity had always been a species that fought for survival, but now they faced a question more complex than ever. Should they continue to act as they had always done? Or should they try to change, to prove that they could be trusted? Clara James, the woman who had led the defense against the pirates, was summoned by Earth's leaders. Her role in the battle had made her a hero, but it also made her a symbol of humanity's potential for violence. She arrived at the council hall, her face serious. She had lived through the chaos, and now she was being asked to help shape humanity's future in a galaxy that was starting to see them as a dangerous power. "Clara," said Councillor Matthews, an older man with deep lines on his face, "we need your perspective. What you did on that planet has made waves across the galaxy. People see you as a leader, as someone who represents the potential of humanity's rage. What can we do to ensure we don't spiral out of control?" Clara looked around the room, feeling the weight of their gazes. She knew what they wanted to hear, but deep down, she knew the truth was more complicated. "We need to be careful," she said, her voice firm but calm. "Our anger, our rage, it's not something we can control once it's unleashed. The galaxy's seen what happens when we fight. They saw us fight for our survival, but they don't know us. They don't understand our heart." A younger council member, Commander Ivanova, leaned forward. "So, what do you suggest? That we hide our strength? That we act like we're weak, just to keep the peace with the other species? We've already shown what we can do. Why not stand tall and let them know we are not to be underestimated?" Clara shook her head slowly. "It's not about hiding our strength," she said. "It's about showing that we are more than just the rage we've got inside us. We can't let our fury define us. But we also can't ignore it. The galaxy is afraid of us, and if we don't prove we are more than just fighters, it's only going to get worse." Commander Ivanova was not convinced. "What do you mean by prove we are more? How can we do that when every time we act, it seems like we're making things worse?" Clara's eyes softened, and for a moment, her past as a soldier flashed before her eyes. She had learned to fight, to survive, to never back down. But now, she had to figure out a new way to lead. "We need to show the galaxy that we can be trusted. That we're not just about destruction. We've got the power, yes, but we've also got the capacity for diplomacy, for understanding, for peace." Councillor Matthews nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. But how do we prove that? The galaxy's already seen the worst of us. How do we make them see that we can be something more?" Clara took a deep breath. She had been through countless battles, but this was the toughest challenge yet. "We have to lead by example. If we want peace, we need to show the galaxy we can work with them, not just fight against them. We need to show them that humanity isn't a threat to be controlled. We're a force to be respected, and we can help, not just destroy." As Clara spoke, she could feel the weight of her own words. She was asking her people to change, to shift their mindset in a galaxy that was already watching them closely. But she also knew that this was their chance to prove they were more than the rage that had been growing inside them. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the other species were struggling with their own responses. The Korak, who had once seen humanity as an ally they could work with, now wondered whether the cost of that alliance was too high. Their own warriors, strong and battle-hardened, had seen the berserkers in action and wondered if they, too, could be controlled or used for their advantage. There were whispers among the Korak leaders of forging an alliance with humanity, but the fear of being swept up in humanity's anger kept them hesitant. The Seraphim, the race that had once tried to understand and empathize with humanity, now found themselves questioning whether they had underestimated the true scale of humanity's potential. They had believed that peace could be achieved through understanding, but the actions of humanity, especially the events with Clara James, had proven that their strength was not only physical, but emotional and mental too. And then, there was the Nithran, a race known for their mastery of psychic energy. They had always valued calm and mental control. The Berserkers were a direct threat to their way of life. What could a race with so little control over their emotions possibly contribute to the galaxy? The Nithran feared that humanity would one day rise up and obliterate all who stood in their way. The Council, now divided more than ever, faced the hardest decision of all. Should they attempt to work with humanity, despite the risks? Or should they take action against this rising power before it became too great a threat? Back on Earth, Clara looked out of the council hall window, thinking about the decision she had to make. She knew the path ahead would not be easy. She couldn't change the galaxy's perception overnight, but she believed in humanity, and she believed they could show the galaxy who they really were. The future of humanity, and the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. Would they rise to the challenge of being both powerful and peaceful, or would they be driven by their rage, becoming a force that even the gods could not stop? The tipping point had come. The galaxy's future rested on the choices humanity made next. The tension in the galaxy had reached its peak. Every species, from the peaceful Seraphim to the war-hardened Korok, watched as humanity stood at the crossroads of its destiny. Would they continue down a path of rage and destruction, or would they prove they could be something more, something the galaxy could rely on? The stakes had never been higher. Back on Earth, Clara James had become a symbol of humanity's strength and fury, but also of its potential for peace. She had spoken to the United Earth Council, urging them to choose a path of diplomacy, not domination. She had seen the way humanity's actions had affected the galaxy, and now she was ready to take action to change their future. The first step was a bold one. Humanity had decided to send a delegation to the Galactic Council, not as a group of warriors, but as diplomats. Clara, along with several key leaders, would be part of this delegation. They knew that this meeting could either solidify humanity's place in the galaxy or lead to their downfall. It was a risk, but it was one they had to take. Clara sat in the briefing room, her mind racing with questions. She had been through battles, but this was something different. This wasn't a fight against pirates or invaders. It was a fight for humanity's future. She was about to face representatives from some of the most powerful and ancient species in the galaxy. Would they see humanity as a threat to be eliminated, or as a potential ally? Commander Ivanova, who had supported Clara's call for peace, stood by her side. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Clara gave a small, determined smile. "I have to be. We all have to be. The galaxy needs to see who we really are, not just the rage, but the heart beneath it." As their ship approached the Galactic Council's headquarters, Clara couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The building was massive, a shining structure in the heart of the galaxy, symbolizing unity among races. But Clara knew that unity was fragile. The galaxy's peace had been maintained for eons, but that peace was now in jeopardy, and humanity was at the center of it. The delegation landed on the Council's world, where they were greeted by representatives from the different species. The Korok, the Seraphim, the Nithran, and others all stood watching as humanity's ambassadors stepped off their ship. Clara's heart pounded, but she stood tall, ready to face the galaxy's judgment. Zalkar, the alien delegate who had warned the Council about humanity's potential for destruction, was there, his large form looming in the background. He gave Clara a solemn nod, acknowledging the weight of what they were about to do. It was clear that even Zalkar, who had seen humanity's rage firsthand, had come to understand that the future of the galaxy might rest on this moment. The council hall was grand, with an atmosphere of ancient authority. Representatives from all races filled the room, some anxious, others with guarded expressions. Clara and her fellow humans stood before them, each of them feeling the eyes of the galaxy upon them. It was time for humanity to speak. The head of the Galactic Council, an elderly Vantari, opened the session. "Welcome, representatives of humanity," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "You stand here today as a symbol of your species' potential, but you also stand here as a species that has shown the galaxy what happens when your rage is unleashed. We are here to understand if humanity is to be trusted or feared. The floor is yours." Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. "We stand before you today, not as warriors, but as representatives of a species that is capable of so much more than just conflict. We have been shaped by our struggles, our wars, our pain, but we are also shaped by our capacity for compassion, for cooperation, for growth. We are a young species, but we have the potential to be a force for good in the galaxy. We understand the fear our actions have caused, but we ask for the chance to prove that we can be more than the sum of our rage." The room was silent for a moment as the council members took in her words. Clara could see that some were skeptical, others were thoughtful. She could feel the weight of their doubt, but she also felt something else, a flicker of hope. She had spoken from her heart, and perhaps for the first time, the galaxy could see beyond humanity's fury. Zalkar, who had been standing silently, spoke up. "I have warned you all of humanity's rage, but I have also witnessed their capacity for change. I have seen what they are capable of when they are given a chance. You must decide whether you want to face the fury of a species who has been pushed too far, or whether you will help them find their place in this galaxy." The Nithran delegate, known for their psychic abilities, was the first to speak after Zalkar. "I have sensed the truth in your words, Clara James. Humanity's rage is not a simple force. It is a reflection of the pain they have endured. They are not so different from us in that regard. I believe there is a way to work with humanity, to help guide them toward a path of peace, but that path must be chosen by all of us." One by one, the delegates began to speak, some in favor of extending an olive branch to humanity, others still hesitant. But there was a shift in the room, a growing sense that perhaps humanity could be more than the threat they had once feared. The Korok delegate, usually known for their aggression, finally stood and said, "Perhaps the time has come to embrace humanity, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Their strength is undeniable, but their will to change is even more powerful." The debate continued, but as the hours passed, the council began to shift toward a decision. Clara felt a glimmer of hope. The galaxy was starting to see humanity for what they truly were, not just the warriors capable of overwhelming destruction, but a species capable of building something better. At the end of the session, the Vantari counselor addressed the room. "It is clear that humanity's future is not set in stone. They have shown both their strength and their capacity for peace. It is time for us to choose whether to stand with them or against them." The decision was made. Humanity would be given a chance. The galaxy would extend a hand of cooperation, not control. The new alliance would be fragile, and the road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time, humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured, not through fear, but through trust. As Clara and her fellow humans left the council hall, she felt the weight of history behind them. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had chosen its path, and the galaxy would no longer view them as just a force of destruction. They were a new dawn in the galaxy, one that would build alliances, create peace, and prove that even the fiercest rage could be tempered by hope. The journey had just begun.